Azar, if I could come to you in the context, because here the questioner has raised the issue of that this was, if you like, the allegation is substantiated. Tahir Saab's already said it would be ironic if it's to refute your own arguments. But nevertheless, that this wouldn't have flourished under Muslim rule, as it did, you know, the concept, the truth, as we believe, the renaissance of Islam, which is Ahmadiyya, would not have flourished under Muslim rule, and it was allowed to flourish under British rule. It seems a strange suggestion, really, doesn't it?
It is not only a strange suggestion. You would say it is almost a counterproductive argument against yourself, because what you're saying is, here's a non-Muslim government that has a greater sense of freedom and liberty for its subjects, whether they are Muslim or non-Muslims, to practice and profess their faith. That we must go to a non-Muslim country to find such freedoms and such rights, basic civil rights, which the Holy Prophet Muhammad launched the jihad in Islam for this same purpose. The Quran quotes in Surah Al-Hajj, the reason he went to jihad was to protect churches and synagogues and temples and lastly masjids from being destroyed, meaning the right of people to practice and profess their faith. Not for any so-called, built-up reason to offend others by saying either you accept faith at the point of the sword or you must accept death, because those are your only two options. Meaning that there's no rights in this land unless you are a Muslim. That has been an argument that has plagued the minds of Western people for centuries, that this seems to be the attitude of the Muslim world. Now for a Muslim to turn around and say, exactly so. If he was in a Muslim land, he wouldn't have no rights. He would have had to have been a Muslim, else his faith, be it Muslim or any otherwise, could not have flourished here, is a direct argument against the purpose of Prophet Muhammad and the very teachings of Islam. And I also take offense to the fact that in this whole argument, that we as a subject of a non-Muslim nation should appreciate them giving us rights that Muslims or any non-Muslim should have in a country, is somehow being duplicitous, being hypocritical. Whereas the Prophet Muhammad taught us to say, Man lam yashkur nas, whoever does not appreciate and show gratitude to the people, lam yashkur Allah, they have failed to show gratitude to Allah. All of these other Muslim groups who were present at the time when they are attacking that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad alayhi salam of Qadian has said words in praise of Queen Victoria, were similarly saying words and statements even more in praise and more in support of this same Queen. And the record is there. I mean, I don't have the quotes in front of me. You can go and look at the scholars and the Muslim leaders of that time, what they were saying. Some of them were going to the extent of saying that our blood is for the Queen, we will die for you, we'll send our people to war for you, we're doing all these things. And these were not Ahmadis. These were the leaders of other groups who were present at the same time. So if the attack, this condemnation is on us for saying these things, as for Hazrat Ahmad alayhi salam saying these things, then at least be just and say all of the Muslims should be condemned, for they were saying similar things. And this is what is really quite interesting about this argument.
It is the poignancy of the message. I mean, here we have, and maybe in the questionnaire, Rashid Saab, in putting the question that you have, and indeed it came from a non-Ahmadi Muslim friend of ours. Nevertheless, I think the beauty of the Promised Messiah's message was the potency of his argument, which was done under pure Islamic foundation. It was breaking the cross-through argument and purposeful, sensible, logical, Quranic or indeed biblical based arguments. But at the same time, he didn't take away from the fact that the idea of good governance, the principle of good governance, was something reflective from the British. Tahir Saab, I think that was a great way of demonstrating in itself the truth of the person that was the Promised Messiah.
As has been said, I mean, this is the same qualities that you always appreciate, anything that is good. So wherever that good comes from, you can't say, I'm only going to appreciate Muslim things or Islamic things. Any good that you see, you should appreciate that. And this is what we're taught in the Holy Quran, and this is what we should be practicing. So like I say, I mean, alhamdulillah, in these days, we are living in this country. They give us the right to build mosques. They give us the right to practice our faith, even go out in the streets if we want to, and spread the message of Islam. This is something which we should appreciate. It is freedom. And this is the rights which was given to us by the Holy Prophet Muhammad. And this is something which we should be practicing, and we want to see practice in Muslim countries. This is what the questioner should be saying, that why aren't these same rights being practiced in Pakistan or other countries like that? Whether it is Ahmadis, whether it's Christians or whoever it is, they're being deprived of their rights, and that should not be from a Muslim country.
Indeed. I mean, Manusab, if I could come to you, I mean, this question raises, and I think it's an important principle as well, Ahmadi Muslims, wherever they are in the world, you know, we have others out from the United States, you know, whilst my ancestry may be Indian or Pakistani, you know, I'm sure friends of mine would say I'm passionately British. One of the things that we are very clear on as an Ahmadi Muslim community is that within the parameters of the laws, the freedoms that are provided, of course we are loyal citizens, but that doesn't preclude us from being questioning or indeed raising criticisms where we feel policies are unjust. Is that not true of every Ahmadi, wherever they are in the world?
Certainly, that is the case. Just wanted to add regarding the background, the historical background of the Prophet ﷺ and the persecution that Muslims in the subcontinent faced. It's something that one of the reasons that the Prophet ﷺ thanked the British for at least lifting that massacre and atrocities that were committed against the Muslims. And this is a very basic thing that any Muslim should do. هَلْ جَزَاءُ الْإِحْسَانِ إِلَّا الْإِحْسَانِ. Somebody who does you a favor, you should just do the same.
Yeah.
And the British were demonstrating an Islamic injunction for giving to the Muslims in the Holy Quran, وَإِذَا حَكَمْتُمْ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ فَاحْكُمُوا بِالْعَدْلِ. If you ever happen to rule among people, you should rule with justice, with adl. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ, on those bases, that we should be showed gratitude and thankfulness to the people who provided that, not only to the Muslims, but to the whole nation at that time.
So there were foundations of good Islamic governance, in effect, that if you're ruling over whoever the people are, you should practice these principles. So the British in themselves were showing these qualities.
Absolutely. And that's a practice of all Ahmadis around the world, whether they're in America, in China, in England or anywhere else. That's the rules that we follow.
Jazakallah. Well, thank you very much. I hope, Rashid Saab, we've answered that question in quite a lot of detail. But of course, if there are questions which are arising from the answers given, please do email in your questions. Again, as a reminder to viewers, that's faithmatters@mta.tv. Faith Matters, one word, at mta.tv. And for those of you using the fax, it's 44 for the UK, 208 687 8037.